From IBMTV, International Broadcast Media, this is American Politics, a unique broadcast bringing you in-depth discussions with American leaders in political thought, analysis, and insight, and real-world experience. Without any agenda or traditional gotcha journalism, I invite you, the audience, to share a conversation with our guests. I am Bill Trezevant, your host. On this program, I am pleased to welcome Mosemarie Boyd to our program. Hello and welcome.
Good evening, Bill. Thank you for having me.
We are honored to have you, and it is such a joy and a pleasure to see you again. How's your day been?
It's wonderful. I'm up here in New Hampshire. It's just a glorious day. Early end of summer, beginning of fall. It's beautiful up here.
Okay, well, I'm looking forward to a very exciting conversation with you over this next hour. But just to begin with, and I know this is you don't necessarily want to promote yourself, but I think your background is pretty impressive. So
Thank you, Bill. You're very kind.
Let me just start. You were the founder of Madam President Political Action Committee, which is dedicated to electing women to national office, including the office of President of the United States.
Yes, sir.
All right. In addition, you're the owner of the True Grit Law Firm in Fort Smith, Arkansas, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You earned your law degree from the University of Arkansas Little Rock, a master's in national security from Georgetown University, and your undergraduate degree from Brown University, and you also studied in Oxford. Is that right?
I have been very blessed to have wonderful educational opportunities, Bill.
Okay, well, in addition, you've worked for women in the United States Senate and the House of Representatives and volunteered on presidential campaigns in Iowa and New Hampshire. And as part of your work to promote the election of women to the presidency, you've previously appeared on CNN's Inside Politics, Fox News' The O'Reilly Factor, and C-SPAN's The Road to the White House. Impressive.
I have been working on this for a while, Bill.
Okay, well, you know, it's certainly a welcome to our audience to be able to at least share some of the wisdom that you've learned. So I'm honored to welcome you as the first guest of IBM TV's American Politics, and thank you for your graciousness.
Well, it's my pleasure to be here. Thank you very much for having me.
I guess the first question that I'm curious about is, can you tell our audience what you would like them to know, either about you or your journey to activism and the things that you have accomplished over the course of your career so far?
Well, let me start by telling you that American women have been running for President of the United States for over 150 years. And I did not know that when I started this effort, but I was delighted to discover that Victoria Woodhull, who owned her own stock brokerage firm on Wall Street, and she and her sister ran a newspaper, she announced herself as a candidate for President of the United States in a letter to the editor in the New York Herald newspaper on April 2nd, 1870 for the 1872 race. And I just think that is awesome. It is powerful. It is prescient. She had vision for what American women can do to contribute in terms of patriotism, in terms of leadership, and in terms of keeping our nation great and making sure to protect our liberties and our freedoms. And she saw that women already had full citizenship rights and the potential to go after what we want. As early as April 2nd, 1870, she said, I am qualified to be a candidate for President of the United States, and she set the bar for all American women. And that was 50 years before women got the guaranteed right to vote in the 19th Amendment. So I think that is some pretty powerful leadership, and I'm excited to
Indeed.
follow in her footsteps in this long-term goal to elect women to the United States presidency.
Indeed. And I guess on that point, at what point did the passion strike you in terms of just getting involved civically? Because I want to touch up. eventually I'm going to get to the point where you wrote the Declaration of Participation. But before I get there, I really think that the audience would benefit how you thought about things and how you approached activism. Did it start with a protest, or was it just an intense interest? Was it a school function, or was it just a sense of public service to the larger community? If we could talk about how your thought process went, that would be fantastic.
My cousin says that I started talking about wanting to run for president when I was 8 years old. And I have put some thought into this. I asked my mom if she suggested, and she says she doesn't think so. She just thought I was born with it. But I do remember at 8 years old, I started riding the bus alone between where my mother lived and where my father lived. And I saw a lot of poverty and what seemed to me like we could do better along those bus trips along the route. I think that is where my passion came from, helping people and wanting to help people and knowing that we can do better and we can work together to improve the lives of all Americans. And that has always motivated me, Bill.
Okay. Now, okay. Now, during the journey of your education, I mean, obviously Brown, and then Georgetown in national security, and then also, was it during that time that you went to Oxford as well?
It was during my master's degree and I actually studied Margaret Thatcher's leadership while I was over there.
Okay. And did that have an impact on how you viewed the role of women in in American national politics?
Well, my goals have always motivated me through school, and I ran for eighth grade class president. And I was speaking to my class teacher recently, and he said one of the things that he was asked after our class graduated what the students in our class would do, and he actually told someone. He said Mosemarie might go on to be the first woman president, and he shared that with me recently. I didn't recall that. But all throughout high school, I participated in Junior Statesmen of America and a wide variety of activities. I believe I was actually at the Junior Statesmen of America event across the bay from where Geraldine Ferraro accepted the Democratic vice presidential nomination in 1984. And of course, all of that helped motivate me. And at that time, I remember saying that this country moves so slowly that 30 years from now, we still won't have a woman president. And if I don't do everything I possibly can to work towards that goal for the first 30 years, all I will be able to do is complain for the next 30 years till we get to the 60 years. Whereas if I do absolutely everything I can to educate myself, to get experience working for women, and to get experience running as a candidate myself in the first 30 years, perhaps in the second 30 years, I will actually be able to get a woman elected president or run on my own and win and get sworn in and do a good job. And so, Bill, that has been my motivation. I think we're looking at a really long-term plan here. It took women 60 more years to get the right to vote, the guaranteed right to vote in this country, than it took African American men. And I think we really need to look at this in terms of the long haul, the long-term plan, and working together to build the history we want and build the future we want, because I don't think it's going to be easy.
Okay, and I want to get to that, but I just, if you don't mind, I just want to drill down on just a couple of things.
Yeah.
So when you worked for the elected officials in the House and the Senate, who'd you work for, and what kinds of things did you do?
Well, right after college, I graduated in 1992 in May, and then I went home to California and thought a little bit about what I wanted to do. Started volunteering on Dianne Feinstein's U.S. Senate campaign and did fundraising for her out in San Francisco. And then I found out she had an office in Washington, D.C. that as part of the campaign, and they were doing fundraising out there. So I actually moved to D.C. and started volunteering with the fundraising coordinator in Washington, D.C. Got the great job of getting to drive Senator Feinstein around to
Okay.
all the big events. And that was my start.
Okay. Now, actually, it's interesting because uh, what people, I guess, don't necessarily realize is that on a campaign, because it's so fluid, that some of the most important jobs are the jobs that you wouldn't think would be important. And being the body person, quote unquote, which is I think what they call it in campaigns,
We
and
just called me her driver, but yeah.
or her driver is the most important because you get a great deal of time potentially to speak with the candidate. Isn't that right?
We worked so hard together the entire time. I never got a single picture of myself and her. And as you know, it's very common to have an opportunity to get a picture with some of these big name folks. And that was never even, there wasn't a spare moment to even think about that. We worked and worked and worked and worked, morning till night.
That's interesting because I've been on a campaign or two, and I tell people now I was working on this campaign or that campaign, but it's just not the same unless you just show them a picture. Now, I too don't necessarily have all those pictures. I regret it now. So I'm hearing you say gently that those that are working on campaigns, make sure you get your picture, right? Is that what you're saying?
Well, it just depends. Sometimes there's more important work to be done.
Yeah. Okay. And tell us about your experience with the in the House of Representatives.
Well, that was after I studied abroad, or I taught English abroad, and then I came back and I was working in Washington, D.C. I found a great mentoring program for women, and my mentor worked in the office of Congresswoman Corrine Brown. She encouraged me to apply for an internship there, which I did, and I was grateful to receive. And then I moved up from intern to staff assistant to legislative assistant, where I was monitoring all of the committee meetings and keeping the Congresswoman informed on bills for intelligence issues, military issues, and a wide variety of other issues that were under my responsibility in the office.
Okay, can I just ask, well, what was that experience like? I mean, oftentimes when people are around major national figures that you see all the time on TV and now on the internet, there's a sense of awe. I think they call it starstruck. What was it like? Because I mean, you were actually going to the hearings, listening
Right.
to the testimony, seeing all these nationally known people. What did that feel like as a young staffer on Capitol Hill?
I felt very blessed and grateful for those opportunities, and I was very grateful to Congresswoman Corrine Brown for hiring me and having confidence in me to go to those committee meetings on her behalf and take notes and write reports for her on bills. There's, of course, Bill, a lot of hard work, and there are many people in this country working very hard from early morning to late night to make sure that they're making a good faith effort to keep their Congress member informed, and the Congress members are working very hard to keep up on the legislation. There are a lot of really hardworking people in this country who are doing the right thing and don't get a lot of credit. And I've learned from these life experiences, I have this little motto that 90% of all the hard work we all do will never be known. So I try to thank people as frequently as possible for all the hard work they put in to make this country work and run smoothly.
That is so true. I guess it's like with everything. I guess when people often say, "Well, how do I get ahead?" and people say hard work. Well, sometimes hard work may just mean just showing up and putting in the time, and
Right.
answering the letters and or writing the memos. Did you find that to be the case on Capitol Hill?
Well, there's a lot going on, and there's a lot of hard work. There's a lot of writing memos, and then there's a lot of making decisions about the use of your limited time and which committee meetings are the most important right now, which bills are going to have the biggest impact in terms of helping people and improving people's lives in your congressional district, for example. So there are a lot of judgment calls about how to invest your time and what the priorities are, because there's a lot going on and you can't do all of it all the time. You've got to make choices and use your own best judgment about what's important and what's going to have the biggest impact on improving people's lives.
Okay, I want to drill down on that for a second, and just before we move on to the next illustrious and impressive chapter in your journey, but I want
You're
to ask
so
you.
kind, Bill.
Oh, no, I'm a Southern kid. just like, you're a Southern uh, voter. Let me ask you this. Oftentimes, at least with some of my colleagues on both sides of the aisle and whatever political persuasion, young staffers become jaded. And is it a function of the fact that on Capitol Hill, whether in the House or the Senate, things seem to move so slowly rather than the change that people would like to see a little faster? Uh, do you find that to be true? And if so, how did you escape that and remain the optimistic person that you are? And then third, why didn't you go to K Street, which is where a number of the jaded staffers go and become a lobbyist? So start with
Let
any.
me let me start while I can still remember what all your questions were there, Bill.
Okay.
First of all, I think it is very important for everyone to remember that self-care and exercise and eating well and sleep and time with your family are very, very important. Mental wellness, listening to music, getting out into nature, doing things you enjoy. That is very important to build that into your work time and make sure that you allocate time for your family so that you can enjoy life. And that is one way to avoid getting jaded.
Okay.
Um, to recognize the hard work that everybody's doing and see the positives and focus on being grateful for what we are able to achieve together. And then I have to say, for me personally, Washington, D.C. can be a little bit insular, and I've been very grateful to get back out into the districts, both in California and my new home state of Arkansas. It is just nice to have your feet on the ground and be in the community and work with people in real life, where you can see directly one on one what's going on with people, what their challenges are, what brings them joy, how to support them, and to listen to people. Hearing people's stories, both their sorrows and their joys. And then I'm a believer in the ripple effect. If you make, you throw a stone into the water and you make one little improvement, it is going to have an ongoing effect. And so I firmly believe in helping people every day in every way that I can and being grateful for those opportunities. That nourishes me and inspires me and keeps me going. Um,
Mhm.
K Street, there is valuable work done on K Street. I understand that there's also a lot of frustration and resentment towards lobbyists and undue influence. And I think there is always an opportunity to balance um, the needs of those and the interests of those who are not experienced in legislative advocacy with those who have huge dollars backing them and very experienced lobbyists who work through the system. I hope that our legislators have a heart for service and are there for the right reasons and can see the real needs of American citizens and the constituents in their district, and hopefully do what's best for all Americans and not just be unduly influenced by the K Street folks.
Okay. And thank you for that. I have one quick question, and then I'd like us to turn our attention to um, your website, which we have the pleasure of having here, and we can go through that. But well, maybe it's two questions. I'm sorry. As you know, as an attorney, there's always a follow up, and then there's another question. But I guess I heard you say oftentimes they refer to it as "quote unquote" the fire in the belly, or being uh, feeling feeding off the energy of the crowd. Now, what I hear from you, and I guess, and I'm asking you, is when you accomplish something great or small for someone else, is that the fire in the belly for you? Is that the essence of public service for you in terms of helping others?
I believe so, Bill. That is what motivates me every day when I get down on my knees and say my morning prayers and ask for God's guidance for my day and my life and to keep me ready and available to living beings. That is definitely what motivates me. Now, let me tell you, to me, is a funny story. I got back from teaching English in Asia, and I came back to the United States, and I went around in DC and spoke to a number of influential individuals who might have an interest in some of the experiences I had while I was over there. And I
Uh-huh.
had the privilege of dining at the Cosmos Club in DC with a member there who was very kind to visit with me and meet with me and share, sort of an information interview. He shared about his career, and I shared some of my experiences. And he told me, Bill, that you do not have the fire in the belly to run for president. And I was like, you are wrong. I definitely have the fire in the belly to run for president. So anyway, that was a funny experience in my life.
And that's so true, because oftentimes you'll meet more people that tell you that you can't do something than you will find or run into people that believe and assist you. Am I right?
That you are so right, Bill. And that reminds me, Ambassador Carol Moseley Braun, when she was running for president, actually, I took out a $5,000 personal loan and set up events in Iowa, New Hampshire, and South Carolina for President's Day weekend in 2003 for the 2004 cycle. And she graciously accepted our invitation that had gone out to all of Fortune's 50 most powerful businesswomen, all the women governors, all the women in the US Senate, and all the women Congress members. And of all those women who could have run for president, Ambassador Carol Moseley Braun, the former US Senator from Illinois, was the only woman who stepped up to the plate to run in the 2004 election. And we were privileged for C-SPAN to come. The Road to the White House program came to cover our event with Ambassador Braun in Iowa, in Des Moines, and the blizzard of 2003 hit, and it was a whole story. But anyway, during her speech, Ambassador Braun talked about how she was involved in a community group organizing to protect an endangered bird in the local parks in Chicago. And
Mhm.
they actually lost out to the driving range, the golf driving range. But in that process, she became politically active, and people were asking her to run. And she wasn't particularly inclined to run until the other people came and told her all the reasons why she should not run and why she couldn't do it and she couldn't win. And that was actually the catalyst and the motivation that got her into her historic career. And she went on to be the minority leader in the Illinois state legislature, and then a county executive officer, and then the first African American woman ever to serve in the United States Senate. And she was motivated by one of those folks who came and told her, you can't do it, you shouldn't do it. Sometimes that can be very powerful medicine.
Absolutely. I mean, actually, we see examples of that all the time, and whether it's big or small, I think all of us just generally have a visceral reaction that you're
That's right.
underestimating me or you're wrong, and I'll show you. And I can't help but understand now why your law firm is named True Grit. But I will get back to that in a second. What I'd like to do is can should I bring up your website now, because so that we can go through a bit of the history of women running for office and then move into your presidential campaign? Would you?
Yes, that would be great if you want to show folks the homepage for our website, Madam President PAC. It's madam-president.com. And I think once we go through the very intro there, probably the PowerPoint that I have on my computer is the fastest way for us to go through some of the history.
Okay, well, here, let me just show. Should I just start and quickly go over the home screen?
Yeah, please.
Okay, so we have Kamala. Would you like to narrate, please?
Well, of course, Kamala Harris is the vice presidential nominee for the Democrats in 2020. We were very excited to have a woman and to have the first African American woman nominated to serve as a major party's vice presidential nominee. Very exciting. And I actually had the privilege of going to Wilmington in Delaware and being present there. I did not get to see her in the room because of social distancing and COVID. There were so many talented women who could have been Joe Biden's vice presidential nominee this year. And we are excited that she ran. And of course, we had 5 major nationally known women running for president this year. And I was very privileged to run along with them. And we'll talk more about that later. Kamala Harris had 20,000 people at her announcement speech in Oakland um, when she announced. And so it was, and of course we have Joni Ernst and some of the great Republican women leaders who could have run, but of course chose not to because they have an incumbent Republican president this year. But we like to present a lot of the women who would be great candidates and just make sure that people know there are talented women at every level who can and will step up to lead in some of these important positions.
Okay, so what I get is, and this is where, if you could, because it can be confusing, and you pointed out earlier that PACs or K Street lobbyists are often seen as just one big lump and all lumped together and all bad. But your political action committee that you founded, Madam President, is nonpartisan, so it supports both. Is that right? Both Democrats and
we are a federal political action committee registered with the Federal Election Commission. We are a multi-candidate committee, and we are a non-connected committee. So that shows that we have over, can't even remember the number, but I think it was over 50 donors. We've given contributions to at least 5 candidates. And anyway, we've been in existence for a while now, and we are a small donor political action committee, and we are about messaging and promoting the election of women to the presidency and vice presidency. So it's a little different than some of the dark money folks who don't report their money and raise millions in secret.
Right.
So if I could go to the PowerPoint presentation, we could talk a little bit about the history of women running for president in this country.
Absolutely. We'd love to hear it, and especially our audience around the globe. It'd be really.
So give me a moment here on the logistics, and hopefully I'll get this to you. Can you see that now?
Not quite. Not quite.
Get to the slideshow view here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Are you seeing powerful women have commanded great nations throughout history?
Yep. Let me.
Okay.
There you are. Okay. So it's your PowerPoint. Why don't you just take our audience through it?
All right. This is one.
Madam President to be.
Yes, sir.
May I just offer this?
Please, Bill.
You know, for in full disclosure with the audience, I've known Mosey for a while now, and I'm just impressed every single time we have a chance to get together, and I'm even more impressed now. So please take it away, and let's go.
Well, you are so kind, Bill, and I am so honored to be here tonight on your show.
Well, okay.
So for years I have been giving this speech in one version or another, and I think it's very powerful for people to have information to know that women have been running for president for over 150 years now, and that women have served as the head of state around the globe throughout history. So I like to talk about some of this, and I like to ask people to take just a moment and can you name 3 women world leaders? And I think probably more and more in today's world we can. Of course, in the 20th century, we had so many well-known, starting with Margaret Thatcher in Great Britain, but all these countries, Ireland, Canada, France, Israel with Golda Meir, India with Indira Gandhi, Pakistan with Benazir Bhutto, some of these very well-known women. And then we've had powerful women leaders throughout history, Great Britain, Russia, Spain, Egypt, Liberia has had a woman president, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. Of course, Germany's Chancellor Angela Merkel has been with us for quite a long time now. Chile's Michelle Bachelet. She actually served as the defense minister prior to running for president. So that was a very powerful role, and one that we are increasingly seeing women fill. So we just see these women, and I think it is empowering and inspiring to see these women. Ireland has had 2 women presidents now, Mary Robinson and Mary McAleese. And, we are more and more seeing women fill these roles where they are the top national leader. So the more we see this, the more comfortable we are. Prime Minister Indira Gandhi in the Philippines. We've just had women all around the globe, in Argentina.
Mm-hmm.
It's just so exciting to see these women filling these roles. And the more accustomed we are, then the more ready we are to elect a woman president. Can you read those words for me, Bill? Can you see that question there?
Yes, your interactive question. Do you recognize these women?
All right, now I don't want to pick on you, but how about you? Do you know any of those women? Do you recognize them?
Take a closer look.
Who
And
would you guess they are?
I am not sure. I'm not sure. You have me stumped.
Okay, well, these are the defense ministers of several European countries. And
Okay.
it's just so fun for me to see these women filling that role, and yet they're still friendly and personable. And here they are, one of them inspecting the troops. It's just a fun, dynamic, exciting time in the world where women are filling more and more important roles. And here are some of the countries that had two top women recently. So
If,
it's just in our country, after 150 years, it is time for a woman to serve as president and vice president, and we need to work together to make this happen.
oh,
So, as I mentioned earlier, go ahead, Bill.
okay, no, I just wanted to drill down and kind of at this point, since we're having this discussion that I think is very important, valuable, and timely. Oftentimes, there are various knocks on women candidates. Either they're not tough enough, and or they won't be able to handle the job, or as people have argued ever since Geraldine Ferraro, that women don't have the stuff that's made up that you need to answer that 3 a.m. phone call when there's a crisis around the world. And
That is hogwash, and you and I know it.
no, but I'm just going to ask a question, and then if you don't mind.
Yes, sir.
I am struck by the number of women who are running the defenses of
Right.
these countries. I mean, so that's significant. And I was going to ask you, now that we have another vice presidential nominee, at least in the Democratic Party, a qualified person, and a person who happens to be a woman, and a person who happens to be a woman of color, and a person who
Right.
happens to be a woman of color of immigrants, and a person of color who happens to be a woman of immigrants who also happens to be tough on crime. Now, how far do you think that we have advanced, or have we advanced at least compared to ourselves, and or how far do we need to go in terms of squashing this notion that women cannot handle these tough jobs, given the examples you just showed from around the world?
Well, as you know, Kamala Harris was the top cop of the state in our country with the largest population, the most diverse population. And I know you said that she was tough on crime, but I think she's also smart on crime, which sometimes means looking for strategic policies where we are neutralizing conflicts, bringing people together, and looking for common sense solutions that make the community safer, both for law enforcement and community members. And I think Kamala Harris found a lot of good solutions to help bring improvements to the community and improvements to law enforcement. And I think she is the right person in the right place at the right time to help heal some of the divisions between our law enforcement teams and our civil rights advocates. And I'm excited to see the work that she has ahead of her. Let me just get back here to this history, since we still have the PowerPoint open here. So this is Victoria Woodhull, 1872 presidential candidate. Again, she announced herself in 1870, and she and her sister owned their own newspaper, and she was the first woman to open her own stock brokerage firm on Wall Street. And she had overcome quite a number of personal life challenges and saw the need for more advocacy on behalf of women. And she actually became the first woman who was allowed to publicly address Congress. And
Oh,
I think that alone was a pretty amazing achievement.
mm-hmm.
Then we had Victoria Woodhull also started the Equal Rights Party, which was a coalition of abolitionists, women's advocates, and labor organizers. And she ran for that party's nomination. And then the second woman who ran, Belva Ann Lockwood, ran for the nomination of that same Equal Rights Party ticket. And so Belva Ann Lockwood went to law school, earned her law degree, and would have graduated, but for the law school would not give her her diploma because she was a woman, and she had to petition the president of the United States, who also happened to be president of the university, Ulysses S. Grant, and he awarded her her law degree. And then she went on to be the first woman to argue a case before the United States Supreme Court. And I think some of these early women who had great accomplishments in other areas saw that they had the capacity to serve as president of the United States just as much as the gentlemen who were running for the office and filling the role. And some of their amazing accomplishments probably helped give them that vision. There are way too many women who've run, Bill, to tell you about everyone, so I've picked out the most well-known women. We fast forward here to 1964, Senator Margaret Chase Smith from Maine. She was the first woman to serve in both the U.S. House and the U.S. Senate, and she competed in 5 presidential nominating contests that year, and she came in second in Illinois. And she actually was a campaign finance reform advocate, and so she did not really raise much money. And she, as an early woman in the U.S. Senate, she stuck pretty close to Washington, D.C. because she did not want to miss votes and appear to be irresponsible in fulfilling her role as a U.S. Senator. But she did pave the way for women to run for president in the major parties. And then actually on the 100-year anniversary of Victoria Woodhull's campaign for the 1972 race, 3 Democratic congresswomen stepped forward, including Congresswoman Shirley Chisholm, who was the first African-American woman to serve in the Congress in the U.S. House of Representatives, and Patsy Mink from Hawaii, and Belva Abzug also ran that year. And I found recorded votes in New Hampshire for Patsy Mink and Shirley Chisholm, but I did not actually find any recorded votes for Bella Abzug. And Congresswoman Shirley Chisholm actually won the New Jersey primary and took 5% of the delegates to the Democratic National Convention in Florida that year, which was a historic accomplishment for women. Then, of course, we had Geraldine Ferraro, Congresswoman from New York, was the 1984 Democratic vice presidential nominee and did a great job there. Pat Schroeder ran briefly. Elizabeth Dole ran briefly. U.S. Senator Carol Moseley Braun, of course, ran in 2004. And as I shared earlier, we helped launch her presidential campaign at events in Iowa, New Hampshire, and South Carolina. And then she flew back so we were in Iowa Saturday, New Hampshire Sunday, South Carolina on Monday, and then she flew back to Illinois, Chicago on Tuesday and announced her presidential campaign. We worked hard to recruit former Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice to run, but she went on to serve as Chancellor of Stanford University and just has not yet stepped forward to run. And then, of course, we had U.S. Senator, former First Lady Hillary Clinton, ran in 2008 and ran a great campaign that was record-breaking and exciting. And then after Barack Obama won the nomination, we went on to the general. And of course, Alaska Governor Sarah Palin was the first Republican woman VP nominee. And that was an exciting opportunity for Republican women to start getting involved in politics and inspired to support women and run themselves. And I had quite an entertaining Sunday school class one morning listening to conservative ladies talk about how thrilled they were to get a pair of Sarah Palin glasses and think about running for mayor of their hometown. So there's a lot that can inspire women, and it's exciting to see that. And the more women we have on all sides of the aisle, the better off we are. And of course, we had Hillary in 2016, and it was a very exciting race, and so many people thought she was going to win. Of course, she became the first woman to win the presidential nomination of a major party in this country, and that was so exciting.
Mhm.
She was working towards shattering the glass ceiling, and you can see from these slides how many people were just delighted and excited.
Uh-huh.
She stepped into that commander in chief role, and I think really would have done a fabulous job serving as our commander in chief. She had the support of President and First Lady Michelle Obama.
Mhm.
So much enthusiasm. Her family was involved and supportive. It was
Uh-huh.
just a very beautiful, inspiring time for so many. And of course, on election night, how it went, how it looked, and
Mhm.
then how the popular vote came out with her on top. But the Electoral College vote obviously came out with our current incumbent in. And so
Okay.
Hillary did not win.
Okay, well, why don't and this I really would like to spend some time on, and it's interesting. And to begin with, I want to highlight, as you know, your campaign sign, which you gave to me when you declared yourself for a candidate and ran. Um, can I ask you this? What was it like personally? Oftentimes, we here in the public and in the general audience. Um, of a particular candidate. The candidate says, "Well, I'm thinking about it. I have to balance and weigh the issues and things." Sometimes they cite that they consult with their family. Sometimes they ask publicly. We know of. You personally made that decision. Could you explain to our audience kind of what went through your decision making process? Because you were clearly motivated all the way through. But what was it really like? Because this is no small matter to put yourself out there and say, "I'm going to run for president of the United States," and and no, and be a serious candidate early on. Go ahead.
Yes, well, thank you, Bill. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about this. I did run for president in 2020. I went to the Iowa State Fair. I put up my Mosemarie Boyd for President True Grit signs. There were so many Iowans who were happy to host my signs all around the Iowa State Fairgrounds. And I actually had the most signs around the Iowa State Fairgrounds. And it was very exciting. I see this as part of a long term plan to build a history so that when the momentum moves forward and 5, 10, 20 years from now, when American voters are really demanding women candidates, that people can look back and see that for decades she has been working on promoting the election of women to the presidency, and she has supported so many other women. I would just be absolutely delighted for another woman to run and win and get sworn in and do an excellent job. And as you mentioned, the Declaration of Participation, I think we need to call on all women to
Okay.
participate in politics at every level, city, state, national, whatever, supporting another candidate, but also running. They always say when women run, women win. And
Uh,
a lot of times there's a lot more to winning than just getting the majority of votes. You build name recognition, you are able to shape the debate. And so I have been working on doing that my whole career. I am excited to support other women. I have a personal plan that if and when we get another woman elected, I can retire from this effort and go become a sea kayaking guide in the South Pacific Island. And
uh,
I actually, in 2016, I went on to Google and a couple different times, I looked up where I could go become a South
mhm.
Pacific sea kayaking guide. And I got ready because it looked like Hillary Clinton could win.
Uh,
Um, but in the back of my mind, I was concerned that might not happen. But anyway, I would love for another woman to to successfully run for and win, get sworn in, do a good job. But in the meantime, I am going to continue doing everything I possibly can to both promote other women and prepare, train, and get ready myself.
if I could drill down for a moment and ask you, and I don't necessarily I don't necessarily think it's controversial, but some might. So uh, I would say I was going to ask what advice about approaching the decision to run for president would you give not just to women candidates, but women and male candidates? I mean, that may shape their decision as a window into what they're likely to expect. Because I happen to believe the advice from a former presidential candidate is important regardless of gender. But
Just do it, Bill. Just do it. It is so fun and rewarding. You know, Iowans are a particularly wonderful, welcoming, friendly group of folks. They take this so seriously. They know that they have a national responsibility that affects, the choices that people around our country have. And they listen, they're experienced, they expect it, and they take it very seriously. And they're so friendly, they want to give you the opportunity. And I think it's fair to say that most Americans are really looking for someone to succeed. They want someone to do well. They want someone who will listen, who will hear, whose message is in harmony with what their needs are. They're really looking for someone that they can trust to invest their vote in, who will make a difference and improve their state and our nation. And so I think it's a beautiful process. The same thing here in New Hampshire, where I'm blessed to be this week. New Hampshire voters take this process very seriously. They, of course, have the first in the nation presidential primary, which is different from the Iowa caucuses.
mhm.
And they also listen carefully. They will give you the time of day, and they're very interested. They do their homework. I was out campaigning north of Lincoln,
Uh-huh.
and I was out and just, a small town. I handed out business cards along the main stretch in town, different businesses. I went into a convenience store. There was a gentleman there stocking the shelves at the candy stand just below the counter
Uh-huh.
where the cashier was. And I was handing out my cards and I said, "Pardon me, sir, it looks like you're working real hard today." And I handed him my card and he looked at my card and he said, "From Arkansas, right?"
Uh-huh.
So he had already been doing his homework,
Right.
and there were so many candidates in that race, and it just touched my heart that he already knew
Right.
enough, that he cares enough about our country and the quality of leadership that we have as our commander in chief and as our president making all these important decisions. He had done his homework to such a level that he already knew about me, who was a it's generous to say that I was a lesser known candidate, Bill.
Well, two things. First, if I can, um, it's not a particular, a specific story, but it's a general feeling that when I was on campaigns in New Hampshire over the years, both congressional campaigns and presidential campaigns, um, there is something about New Hampshire, and that just has a vibe in terms of the historical significance in
Right.
elections. And uh, by the way, some of the houses are spaced far apart, so you can be walking down some long roads, but it's beautiful. And the people, you're right, are sophisticated. And that's a great segment, at least for this, because you ran with a very catchy tagline. And
Thank you.
for the audience, when I was in New Hampshire earlier this year, um, when I was around the state at various points, I kept seeing this sign behind me. And I kept asking myself, who is true grit? Because, at least for me, and I'll just offer this as an outside observer, and Mosey, you know this to be true, I've shared this with you before. I said to myself, in all of the years that I've seen campaign signs, I've never seen that one. And it was probably the singular most effective one, such that
Thank
the
you.
audience, when I met Mosey, all I said was, "You're true grit."
And I said, "Yes, sir."
Yes, while she was wearing her commander in chief hat and campaigning. But go ahead and tell us about your experience in New Hampshire and
Well,
the.
Bill, like you just said, True Grit is a wonderful campaign message, because so many people in Iowa and New Hampshire would come up to me and say, "I like your signs, True Grit, that's what we need." And it was a very effective messaging to touch the hearts of Americans about our concerns for our country, for each other, for our families, and our vision for the future and where we're headed. So I was very grateful to have that message for this campaign.
Okay. And for our audience, how many states did you compete in?
New Hampshire, Arkansas, and California is where I was officially on the ballot, but I did a lot of campaigning in Iowa. I went to the Iowa State Fair a couple times. I went to the Polk County Steak Fry, which had 12,000 folks, and I was blessed again to have my signs very prominently positioned. I went to the Liberty and Justice Dinner, and again, I was blessed to have an opportunity to get my campaign cards prominently placed at the dinner tables there at that big event. So I had a lot of good fortune and great opportunities. And to me personally, it was a very satisfying first campaign for president.
Okay. These are mundane questions, and don't mind me, and I can't help myself, but uh, the people want to know. At the steak fry dinners,
Yes.
food any good?
Sometimes it's absolutely delicious. Other times there's too much work to really get a chance to eat, Bill.
Okay, you're right, and you're on the go all the time, and that's why some people, gain
There
weight.
is a lot of hard work. I was pounding those yard signs in from 3 to 6 in the morning.
That's right, and you took pictures along the way of your journey, which didn't you?
Sometimes.
Okay, and I assume that'll end up on the website.
I hope so, one of these days. But this campaign, we have been, I don't think we had a chance to talk about it, but back in 2000, I started American Women Presidents. We supported Democratic and Republican women, and we contributed to women in the pipeline to the presidency, particularly looking at women in Iowa and New Hampshire, trying to help those voters become accustomed to supporting women candidates. But I have done a lot of work to promote other women and to make other candidates a priority. So this cycle in 2020,
Mhm.
Madam President Pack only had the other major women candidates running for president. I did not actually promote my candidacy
Okay.
on that campaign on the Political Action Committee website.
Okay, and I'm curious. Did you go to what did you do for the Democratic National Convention this year?
Well, it was a kind of unusual convention, very different than when I had the privilege of going to Philadelphia in 2016. And I was there in the crowd when Secretary Clinton accepted the Democratic nomination. It was phenomenal, wonderful, roaring crowd, three levels just filled. And this year I did go up to Minneapolis, or no, Milwaukee. I did go up to Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and actually I went twice, Bill. I went once in March early to place my signs and take some pictures just in case COVID would shut down all transportation, which praise God it did not.
Uh,
But I did go up again for the actual convention, August 17th, 18th, 19th. I went up and there was almost nobody there. I actually went to Oshkosh beforehand and handed out some Team Joe's Got True Grit flyers. And then the next day, that night, I handed out the Joe's Got True Grit flyers around Milwaukee. And the next day, I put three of my Mosemarie Boyd's Got True Grit, the big signs,
uh-huh.
up on the balcony of the Miller High Life Theater. And I actually did an endorsement of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris for president and vice president. And then I took more of those flyers around into the neighborhoods in Milwaukee, and then I took them to Wilmington. And so I was privileged to be in Wisconsin and do an endorsement event.
Fantastic. And so you mentioned Wilmington. Were
Yes,
you there during the acceptance speeches or no?
I was. I just there was it was so dead in Milwaukee, and it's such a shame where that community had been looking forward to this huge economic benefit and infusion, and COVID has just really devastated so many economic hopes and opportunities this year. But I look forward to building back better. But anyway, I did decide to drive to Wilmington, and I was actually able, because of the way the security was done there, the hotel restaurant was open. So I was able to put my Madam President signs around in key intersections in Delaware and then around the Chase Center for Kamala's acceptance speech that night, and then I went in through the Secret Service security checkpoint. I was able to have dinner on the patio of the restaurant there, and I was actually sitting there when Senator Harris, her motorcade drove up. So I was not in the building where she gave her acceptance speech, but I was sitting there watching it on my phone inside the steel gates, the metal gates, and inside the event center.
Yeah,
So it was kind of like being out there. And for that historic event and the hard work that I've put into this effort and the huge victory that that is for American women everywhere, especially women of color, I had to be there, Bill. And so I was very blessed to have that opportunity.
well, actually, you were as close as anyone could get because you were inside what they call the bubble, which is the ring, the protective ring that the Secret Service puts around. And these days,
Right.
they've expanded it farther and farther out, and very
And
few get
it
through.
was funny because it was the media, security, the hotel staff, and me. And I was just, it was worth it to me to go there and to celebrate.
And to be a part of history, when that
Absolutely.
can be accepted. That's really amazing. Sometimes I think that when other people look at politics and they say, "Oh, it's crazy. You never understand it. Why do you waste your time?" Can you talk about the upside and the positive feelings and emotions that occur within you when you get involved in a political campaign for the benefit of our audience, so that just like your pack, there are good people in campaigns. Mosey?
Thank you, Bill. It's true. There are very good people at all levels, all the time, working very hard. And I think we need to appreciate them. It is public service and it is an opportunity to serve our fellow Americans. And I am grateful for every opportunity that I have. Again, I believe it's a way to help people and to improve people's lives. So I'm always grateful for the opportunity. The other thing I want people to know is I'm always struck, Bill, by how easy it is to have an influence.
Hmm.
As you know, I went after being in Delaware, I went to North Carolina to visit my class teacher, the same one who had said so many years back that Mosey could be the first woman president. I was visiting him because he just turned 80, and we don't get to see each other and visit that often. So that was an opportunity on my way home. And when I realized I was in North Carolina, I actually got down on my knees that morning and prayed for God's guidance for my day and my life. And then I realized I'm in North Carolina. The Republican convention's in North Carolina. I read the news and President Trump was going to be there on Monday. This was Saturday. And I thought, well, I can stay till Monday. So I made a big Team Joe's Got True Grit sign, and I took that out there to the Republican National Convention on Monday morning. And it was, again, security and media. And I was literally the only person out there holding a big sign. And I felt like that is a real way to make a difference. And message got out, and it was covered in various media outlets. And so I really want to invite people to participate instead of complaining and saying, we can't do this or they always do that. Step up to the plate, speak your mind, share what you have to share, and make an investment in this country. It really does improve our lives and it makes you feel good to play a part. And so I encourage everyone to get involved.
If I could ask one final question, can you just tell them where our viewers where they can find you, Madam President?
Yeah, our website is madam-president.com. If you Google Madam President PAC, it's PAC for Political Action Committee, that'll take you to our website. And I always love to spread the word about women running for president, this long 150-year campaign. I believe that empowers people to feel like we are ready and it is time to do everything we can to support Kamala Harris for vice president in 2020 and to support other women running for president and vice president in the future.
Well, fantastic. I really appreciate your advocacy and your willingness to step out into the public arena. As you know, it was Teddy Roosevelt who wrote "In the Arena." Getting out there and having the gumption and taking the good with the bad in a cause or for service that is committed to a cause higher than yourself. And that
There
is
really is a lot of good going on in this country, and we have a lot to be grateful for, Bill. And I think the more people get involved, they see the hard work, they see how challenging it can be to face these decisions and sort through the information and make the best decision. And I think the best way for people to rebuild their confidence in our American democracy is to participate, get involved, and do your part.
okay. Well, listen, our time unfortunately has run. It seems like only a moment.
Oh,
Um,
it's always a pleasure to see you. I'm so grateful to be on your show, Bill.
no, I'm honored to have you as our guest. Your message resonates with people, and this
Thank
platform
you.
will help you reach a little farther. So again, I appreciate you, and thank you for appearing with us on American Politics. I will simply say this: I hope you enjoy New Hampshire. This time you're not campaigning. Maybe they'll still remember you as True Grit, but as you know, your cause will continue, and you always need people. So uh, they can visit your website and then get active and get involved because our country's worth it, don't you think?
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Bill. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you, and have a good evening, Mosey.
You too. Thank you. Bye bye.
Well, uh, to our audience, thank you for spending time with us here at American Politics. Um, our program is designed to have an open conversation and to listen to all sides without judgment, without gotcha journalism, in a way that allows you, the audience, to hear unfiltered how people think about politics who are involved in politics and what they truly believe, perhaps sometimes from people who wouldn't normally have the time to hit the airwaves. So, um, here at IBM TV, we are proud of this program and we are proud of where we take it. We have some exciting guests coming up, but once again, I'm Bill Trezevant, the host of American Politics. On behalf of IBM TV, IBM, International Broadcast Media, uh, smart television for a smarter global community. From dictatorships to democracies around the world, we are keeping all of you in our thoughts. And so I will say good morning, good afternoon, and good night. Please visit with us again.